So I'm going to talk a bit about the journey that we have with AI and machine learning at King, and with particular focus on generative AI now in the past year, and then also some musings about where we are going and so what the future looks like. But to put some context around it. So I'm relatively new at King. I've been a year and a half. I'm the VP head of AI and machine learning, and came to King through an acquisition. Before that, I was the CEO and founder of a company called Peltarion that built a deep learning platform that basically allowed non-AI experts to build deep learning systems. And been doing that for, well, 20 years or something like that. Ended up in King, which was super exciting. King is a special place if you like data. 250 million monthly active users. The sort of volumes of data, the information that's there to be had and explored is fantastic. And the thinking behind, or the reasoning behind King's acquisition of an AI company was essentially a strategic decision to go full in on AI, as they were already very much data-driven from the start. So there's data engineers in just every department. Our whole company is based around A/B tests. We're running hundreds of them simultaneously at any moment. But it's manual work mostly, so analysis and so on, and decisions. And the King leadership thought that, okay, now's the time to go for automation. In the meantime, while we were being acquired by Microsoft, another thing happened simultaneously, which was that King, as part of Activision Blizzard King, was acquired by Microsoft. So this is relatively new. Basically, it closed in October, and we're still sort of figuring out what the whole thing will be. But from an AI perspective, it's of course super exciting, as Microsoft not only has some amazing people in-house, but also owns half of OpenAI. But I'm going to focus on King in this presentation. So we have my organization, which sits in the CTO, under the CTO, is a corporate level org that's in charge of two things. Essentially supercharging our products and supercharging our productivity. Well, in both cases using AI, of course. In addition to that, we have a AI lab that performs applied research, and we also have an enablement team that performs education and things like that. Now, when Peltarion was acquired and this organization was founded, there was a very straightforward goal for this year, which was make a lot of money using AI, show that it has value, essentially. Which was a really good and simple use case because it was easy to measure, and for somebody like a company that has so much data, there are so many use cases there. So it was really, I'm trying to find a non-offensive analogy, but shooting fish in a barrel or something like that. It was really easy pickings because the groundwork had been laid there for the years that King has been active. So we had this team called ML Special Projects, not a large team, supported by AI labs that just first categorize use cases and then just started doing them. And we achieved the goals. Over 20 different use cases went into production. This evolved later into AI game application areas, so like personalization and content automation, where we grouped the use cases. And the learnings, what worked was first that there was this top-down support. So this wasn't, as has been the case in King, and it's very often the case in the gaming industry, is that sort of machine learning and AI is represented by small teams, relatively of a technical nature, relatively low down in the organization, and they are trying to pitch their ideas to the product teams, like, oh, you should be using the AI for this or that. And that tends not to work as well. So for us, sort of top-down initiative that, like, this is a strategic bet for the company, we're going this way, helped a lot. It also helped a lot having this very autonomous team that AML is running around the company, working across all parts of King, which simplified things a lot. And also sort of this strategy of starting off with, I wouldn't say random, but you go with use cases by value, but then over time grouping them into features that goes into the games in sort of strategic areas. On what we learned, sort of more learning side, is that treatment is as important as the AI model. It doesn't matter if you have the best churn model or player lifetime value model in the world and can exactly predict what the player wants or is going to do. You still have to act on it, and that action, the treatment of the results, is often more difficult than the predictive model that you build. We also realized that it was very important for us for the game teams who had great data experience, lots of sort of data engineers, data scientists, but limited machine learning experience, really support them end to end until something is in production. Another learning that few areas bring a lot of value. So even if we started off with more than 100 use cases, in the end, 5 or 6 are the ones that are really bringing the value. And it's really important to work cross-domain in the company. Another thing that happened this year, and it basically, GPT-4 kickstarted it. It started by, I mean, you know, the demos that came out when it came out. And our team put together a quick demo for King leadership and just showed essentially what can be done for productivity, for coding, for organizing information. And they got it immediately. And it was like, okay, we have to do it. We have to do it now. Let's start with a pilot. And so we did. The first challenge was sort of, okay, OpenAI. Can we trust them with our data? Can we send just everything to them? ChatGPT, back then there wasn't a plus version or enterprise version. So essentially anything you upload there would potentially be used as training data for OpenAI, which was a no-go for us. So we opted for building our own chat client and using the OpenAI APIs for that, which had higher levels of protection. And we had some 250 participants across different areas, everything from marketing to coding to data scientists and so on. And it was a sort of twofold process. One was for people to get familiar with the technology, but it was also to identify a lot of use cases where this could be applied. And we ended up with a list with over 100 different ones. And we finished this off by competition, specifically for the technical craft for coding, where we saw 30% uplift in productivity, so speed of solving tasks. We saw a 30% uptick in quality, but also it was like 5 problems that people had to solve. 12 people that were GPT-4 assisted managed to solve 4 of the 5. Only one that was unassisted solved 4 out of 5. Nobody solved 5 out of 5. And another great feedback was that 100% of those participating in the pilot and also the same for the competition, wanted to keep using the tool. Ultimately, the decision, sort of our in-house tool, Conversation, we are phasing it out in favor of a third-party tool, also GPT-4 powered, mostly because we're in the games business. We're not in the building chat clients business. So rather than having to maintain and develop our own version, we opted for a third-party one. So what worked? GPT-4. It really, really works well. But I guess you already know that. We were also, at least for a company of King size, able to move very quickly and deploy the first prototype. We were talking about from my idea to having the first prototype was 2 or 3 weeks. We used GPT-4 to help get that going. The pilot participants were very engaged. This is generative AI. Like AI is popular in game in general, and that's been a shift in the past 2 years. But generative AI, that's really, really, really popular. Like everybody wants it and everybody's interested in it. So getting people engaged was super easy. What were sort of learnings and complexities? Legal considerations are complex. They take time. There's a lot of this stuff that doesn't have any precedence. A lot of the thinking comes from industries that are essentially not gaming industries. For a majority of companies, IP may not be the most important thing. For us, IP is very central. So making sure that people can use this safely and that we are protecting our intellectual rights, not violating other people's rights and so on, companies' rights, is very important. So it's complex. It's also another complexity general in this field is that it's developing so rapidly. So it's hard to make a bet. Generally on the core technology, going with sort of OpenAI has been ahead of everyone else. So that has been relatively easy. But everything that's built on top, there are so many choices. Most of them add very little value on top of what's there. So they have no moat and tons of competition. So how do you pick a third-party tool and commit to a certain period of time? Just keeping up to date. One of the results of this was that we founded a dedicated AI productivity team within my organization. We got additional headcount there to essentially monitor and take advantage of all the tech that's coming out there. And the final thing is that for work, enablement and education training, it's really necessary. Otherwise, people can stare blankly at the chat prompt and really not know what to do and how to do it. So it's inspirational, like you can do it for this in your regular workday and so on. It's very much work in progress. I don't think anybody in the world has a great solution for that, because I think everybody's way of working is about to change radically. We just don't know yet exactly how. I know myself, I use GPT-4 for so many things every day, and yet I not so seldom remember, I should have used the AI for this. Why did I do this manually? So getting new habits of working in new forms. Then, we have an applied research team called AI Labs that works on, if we look at the AI productivity team, they're like the first users of technology that's out there. AI Labs is more about going deeper, doing long-term research, very much in time with what's happening, but more long-term bets and more specifically tied to the games. So, for instance, how LLMs can be used to create player and abilities, automated decisions, and so on. And they publish, deliver keynotes, and we've had a bunch of projects coming out of AI Labs that are now full-blown products in the game. Most prominently, perhaps, our playtesting bot that tests Candy Crush levels, gives them a score of difficulty and can perform level tweaking adjustments. That has worked really, really well, and it is beloved by game designers who are saving a ton of time because of that, and able to release much faster. Then we also have an AI enablement team, which is education. We started off directly by creating a concept called the King AI Academy. And the initial idea was like, okay, let's get everybody on the product side at King up to speed on machine learning, on the stuff that we're doing in the use cases. So not the generative stuff, but more of the traditional deep learning things. But as generative AI became more relevant, that has been included as well. And we hold a number of courses, AI for executives, AI for product managers, AI for data scientists. We also have one upcoming AI for engineers, which we've held in our Stockholm office, in our Barcelona office, and in our London office. And it's a really good way of sort of getting people thinking about how AI can be used in their daily work. Again, King is very much a data culture, data-driven A/B tests, not so much machine learning AI. So getting product managers and thinking about, okay, we should use AI for this feature and so on, is very important. Also started or we own the work around responsible AI, so the trustworthy AI governance framework, which we started on the King level. Then we joined it to the Activision Blizzard level, and hopefully now we'll combine that with a Microsoft level. So what worked? King level strategy and leadership support, that was like key. It has been helped a lot by like everybody loving AI anyway, because of all of the hype that's around it right now. And I'm not using hype in a negative word. It's not unjustified, but AI is very popular. Combine that with a very top-down strategic push. It helped the game teams to prioritize doing AI over other roadmap items that they had. This sort of small team working autonomously across all organizations, corporate level, worked really well. I think tying it to financial results was in some ways painful, because you have to track, you have to measure. So there's a lot of work there, but super powerful because it's sort of a common denominator across all departments and all everyone, and it's sort of becomes a very simple KPI. You're just aiming at. And also that for the speed of deployment, that just having a great model really isn't enough. That treatment, applying a solution, is as important and often more complicated. Knowing a great prediction, a great decision doesn't solve anything. You have to take some actual action, and what that action is not trivial, and that we've seen over and over again, where we could have a metric going up massively, sort of a measurement on like how well we can predict or how well we can suggest something to the user, but how it translates to an actual action, what the game does, how the game responds to that state, is quite a different manner, and that's more complex. In the long term, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, automated decision making is going to play a much bigger role, so that you get around that treatment problem. So where does the future sort of lie within generative AI in games? I should first qualify, but say that my games experience comes from King, which does casual mobile gaming, match-free. This may not apply at all to blockbuster tier 1 games that have a very different type of life cycle, different type of monetization and so on. But at least from the casual space and from the King perspective, personalization or even hyper-personalization, and this should be obvious. I mean, this has worked well in the music industry. This has well worked for Netflix and streaming and things like that. It's actually strange that it's taken such a long time to reach the gaming industry. But creating a personalized experience for the game. Now, this could be to different levels. You could say on one simple level is, okay, you will customize the offers you give to the player. Like, do you want these items, boosters or these items? Or you could go a step further and customize the maps. See, this player likes this type of maps. Or you can go even more extreme, where in the end, the game is completely adapted to the user. And you have this concept, you get these games as flow machines rather. This again specific for the casual space. When people sit with candy, they like to de-stress for a while. They like to get into a certain flow, be there for a few minutes, and then go and do something else. Now, what that flow is very individual. And tailoring the game experience to just be this amazing experience that fits exactly the situation you're in. That could be one thing. But that's far from an obvious solution. In Candy, for instance, we have all sorts of competitions, communities, and so on. What happens if the gaming is like a completely solipsistic, individualist experience that you really can't share with anyone? Is that the way we want to go? Maybe, maybe not. So those are sort of open philosophical questions about game design, of how far do we want to take it? But that there's value there, and that there's sort of something that can increase the enjoyment of the players, definitely. Then now with generative AI, we get to rethink the way we use machine learning. It's kind of interesting. Typically, if we look at the personalization cases or automated decision making, you would say, okay, let's build a reinforcement learning model that will learn the player behavior and then interact with the player and serve what is needed. That's a sort of typical one central model that models the player. Build a big model, and you can capture all sorts of complexities in player dynamics. But let's what if we switch it around? Assign a single agent for each player, their individual agent that gets to know them, doesn't get to know what all the players in the world like, and try to model them. Just learn this person, this individual. And then that agent can have a discussion with a map serving agent and says, oh, well, listen, my player likes this, this, and this. Can you serve one of these up? And so on. So it opens up a lot of possibilities that weren't there. Well, ultimately, what generative AI is, it's not about generating images or text and so on. Those are nice things. They can improve sort of practical things. But the really monumental thing is that what we have now is scalable reasoning. Meaning these AIs can perform cognitive tasks, they can reason, and we can have as many as we want of them and just scale it out. They're not super bright yet. They have limitations. They have some really good properties as well. But the same way, even with the technology that we have just today, it's possible to do amazing things. Even with the limitations that LLMs like GPT-4 have, you can still, by being a bit clever of how you combine them, get fantastic reliability, precision, and that scalable intelligence. Content generation, that's an obvious one. Levels, different artifacts in the game, assets. and so on. Again, can be tied to personalization and so on. That's an active area of research. That's also a massive minefield when it comes to copyright law and ethics. So we're treading very, very carefully there. Ways of working with copilots.
Luka, if you could hold on just a second, we've got some screen problems right now. We'll be right back to you.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Back to you.
Okay. Ways of working with copilots and things like that. I mean, like I said, we're all going to have to find new ways of working. This is that much is clear. What it's going to be, it's unclear. How is that going to affect company culture? How will we develop games? Instead of having 50 people working on one game, should we have 5 people and a bunch of AIs? Or 50 people working on 50 games? Or what kind of sort of setup do we do? I think also one key thing is that we can get a much deeper understanding of our players and rely less on short-term metrics. At least for us, we are very, very dependent on proxy metrics. So like this is correlated with this, and we hope that this is related to how the player feels about the game, not just today, but over a period of years. Remember, we are a Candy Crush is like a soap opera, like Days of Our Lives, never ending. There will be a Candy Crush in 10 years. It won't be Candy Crush 2. It will still be Candy Crush. So it's a kind of always evolving and so on. And our relationship to our players are long-term. The sort of a base of players that we have are very, very typically stay on for many years. And getting to that understanding is hard right now when you're relying on this massive data feed that you're getting every second and trying to make the decisions on individual play sessions or over a week's play sessions and so on. Another thing, simulating player behavior at large scale. Right now, we have to A/B test everything if we want to like see if a feature will work or not. Using AI to get that understanding without having to actually A/B test was big. And that is essentially also automatic decision making. I mentioned treatment is a big problem. Like, what do you do? But the great thing with AI is that not only can it do predictions, it can actually take actions and make decisions, meaning that we can have a full circle of, rather than getting out a prediction and then trying to figure out reason on guesstimate of, oh, let's try this and see if this will work well. We get that automated based on data, based on the players. So those are I would say, things that I'm most excited about looking forward and that are going to have a big impact, at least the way King works. But I think also this applies to other companies as well. Thank you.